He didn't change overnight. In fact, no one even noticed at first. But 1 year later, people who had known him for years walked past him on the street and didn't recognize who he'd become. Here's a story about how one quiet habit can rewrite an entire life. He wasn't extraordinary, not special, not gifted, not someone anyone expected greatness from. His name was Haris, and for most of his life, he lived in almost. Almost confident, almost consistent, almost the person he wished he could be. He worked a simple office job, one of those places where days blended together like identical gray clouds. The kind of job where no one asked how you were, only whether you filed that report. Haris wasn't unhappy, but he wasn't living either. He was just there. His colleagues used to joke that he moved like a shadow, quiet, predictable, fading into the background. And honestly, he believed them, because deep down, he knew he had disappeared from his own life long before anyone else noticed. The real problem wasn't his job, or his finances, or even his loneliness. It was something much smaller, something that felt stupid to admit out loud. He had stopped trusting himself, stopped believing his own promises. Every time he told himself he'd change, he broke the commitment. Wake up early, lasted 2 days. Eat better, gone by the weekend. Start a new routine, forgotten by Monday. Eventually, he stopped making promises at all, because nothing hurt more than disappointing yourself again and again. Until one night, one simple, painfully ordinary night, everything shifted. He was walking home after a long day. Scrolling through messages he didn't feel like answering, when a thought hit him so suddenly, he actually stopped in the middle of the road. It wasn't dramatic, no lightning bolt, just a quiet sentence he whispered to himself. If I can't trust myself, how will my life ever change? That single line stayed with him the entire walk home. Not in a motivational way, more like a truth he'd been avoiding for too long. When he reached his apartment, he sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the cracked wall, and made a decision. Not a big one, not a life-changing one, just one tiny habit. One thing he would do every single day. No excuses, no skipping, no negotiating. He chose something ridiculously simple. 10 minutes of walking. Every day, no matter what. Not the gym, not running, not dieting, just a walk. Even if it was slow, meaningless, or boring. 10 minutes. It sounded almost embarrassing. But for the first time in years, Haris made a promise he could actually keep. The first week was uneventful. He walked around the block, hands in pockets, frustrated but committed. Some days he didn't want to go, but he went anyway. Not because he loved it, but because he didn't want to fail himself again. By the second month, something subtle started to shift. Not physically, emotionally. He began to notice the city at night, the dim shop lights still open, the stray cat that always sat near the bakery, the old man who watered his plants at the same time every evening. The world felt less heavy when he was moving. His thoughts felt clearer. He started solving problems during those walks instead of drowning in them. And then came the first unexpected change. He slept better. Not because 10 minutes of walking was magic, but because he felt proud of himself for the first time in years. That pride turned into momentum. Momentum turned into confidence. Confidence turned into curiosity. If I can keep this one habit, he wondered, what else can I do? So he added another small habit, a 5-minute journal, just one page. Every night after his walk, Nothing fancy, just honest words about his day. By month 4, people at work started asking if he'd done something different. New haircut? Different clothes? You look fresh. He'd just smile and shake his head, because the biggest changes were happening silently, inside. He didn't talk the same way anymore. His voice carried a steadiness he'd never had. His shoulders weren't slouched. He listened more. He rushed less. He looked people in the eye. 6 months in, he realized he wasn't the shadow anymore. He had become the kind of person others naturally gravitated toward, and he didn't even know when it happened. It was like he was meeting a new version of himself, slowly, layer by layer. By the 9th month, his life looked different. Not perfect, just different in a way that felt real. He had better relationships, stronger boundaries, clearer thoughts, more patience, more self-respect. And everything, every transformation, traced back to that tiny promise he made on a random, unremarkable night. When the year finally completed, he went for his nightly walk like usual. But this time, a neighbor he'd lived beside for years didn't recognize him. She stared for a moment before saying, "You look completely different, in a good way." Harris laughed softly, not out of pride, but out of disbelief, because he hadn't set out to transform. He had just wanted to trust himself again. And in keeping that small habit, day after day, he didn't just change his body or his routine. He changed his identity. He became someone he respected, someone he liked, someone he never thought he could be. Sometimes, the smallest promise you keep becomes the version of you the world has been waiting to meet.